UNLV quarterback becomes first player to pull out of season for NIL money issues. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Pat McAfee Show. So this has been big time news in the world of college football, where we have one of the first instances, really, of a player leveraging themselves and their value to a team to seemingly get more money. Now, this is a very he said, she said kind of situation. Matthew Sluka, the UNLV quarterback, claims that UNLV did not meet expectations when it come to NIL and what he was to be paid. UNLV says not the case. UNLV says, no, we actually paid exactly what we said we were going to, and nothing that he's claiming is true. So we'll talk about this whole situation, what it means for college football, and much more, with the backdrop being Pat McAfee and his crew.
Over there in UNLV, Tone Diggs. What the hell's going on with Matthew Sluka? It feels like every tweet, it's kind of going back and forth on what actually happened and what didn't happen, from sources from school, sources from collective, sources from agency, sources from family. There's source-off seemingly happening with the UNLV Matthew Sluka situation. Can you explain what it is for the people and then break down where we currently stand?
Yeah, so the UNLV quarterback, Matthew Sluka, he played at Holy Cross for 4 years. He's a fifth-year senior. Came into UNLV this year, and then this morning or late last night, he put out this post that basically said he's not going to play for UNLV at all anymore this season. He's going to redshirt this year, so he's not going to lose the season, and he's going to transfer and go somewhere else. And then there was reports that after the 3-0 start by UNLV, that he went into the coach's office to ask for more NIL money, and it doesn't seem like that's the truth. The more, I don't want to say official reporting, but the more official reporting, because everyone with an actual journalist background, your Pete Thamels and those of those nature, say that there was a verbal agreement for $100,000 for him to come to UNLV. Just a verbal agreement, nothing signed, nothing on paper, which, good idea there. That he got $3,000 for as a stipend to move to UNLV, but has not seen another dollar of the $100,000. And really just wants that $100,000 that he was verbally promised. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen, so he's not going to play anymore.
Now,
okay, yep, that's pretty much what happened. That's pretty much a good rundown. I believe that this verbal commitment from the offensive coordinator is the big problem. And NIL is a tricky beast, mostly because it's totally unregulated, but also because different states have different rules of pay to play. NIL, so in its like the highest, 50,000 foot view, NIL was made so that players can make money off of their name, image, and likeness. Okay, so that means off of jersey sales, off of video games, off of commercials, off of brand sponsorships, off of whatever. That's the point. What it is not supposed to be is pay to play. What it is not supposed to be is we are just paying this player to play. Now, we all understand. None of us here are dumb enough to believe that that's not how it works. And in lies the problem of this no regulation. Where is the money coming from? Because if NIL is supposed to be your name, image, and likeness and whatever, then it should be through corporations and contracts and whatnot. It shouldn't be from one booster, his pockets, to player's bank account, which is what it's turned into. And the NCAA isn't regulating it. The states aren't regulating it. The schools aren't regulating it. The players aren't regulating it. There is no one regulating this. So you have situations like this where UNLV and their collective agreed to pay Matthew Sluka a certain amount of money, and they tied it to it was like a cancer fundraising event or something. Is what he was tied to for this money. He was given the money, $3,000 a month, okay? And that was it. The verbal agreement side is that he would transfer and make $100,000 for transfer. But NIL and this whole thing has been around for years now. You got to get it in writing. You have to get the contract. Who is the offensive coordinator? He's certainly, I know who he actually is, but he's not paying the money. So if he says, yeah, we'll give you $100,000, that shouldn't be a problem. it's not out of his pocket, right? The head coach, some of these teams have GMs now, or one of the boosters, the chairs of the commissions, or the collective, or whatever. Like, that's who has to be telling these players exactly how much money they're getting. And now the other side of the issue is, so Sluka obviously isn't getting paid the money that he feels like he deserves. And you can argue over, does he deserve it or not? This week, 3-0 UNLV is set to play Fresno State. UNLV is right now playing for a playoff berth. Like, if they continue the way they're playing right now, they can be one of the teams that are in the playoffs. Sluka is seemingly using this time as max leverage. They are 3-0. They want to win. It is the week of an enormous game. He wants $100,000. That's the situation. I've heard some big boys in Vegas agree to pay him $100,000. This part is the issue, because this part is illegal under the rules of NIL and under the rules of pay to play. You cannot basically leverage yourself out to say, I'm not playing unless I get this amount of money. Certainly in the state of Nevada. I don't know if it's like that. I can't tell you every state that has these rules, but I know for sure where UNLV is, you cannot do what Sluka is asking them to do. It cannot happen. You cannot just every week say, I'm not playing this week unless I get $50,000. I'm not playing this week unless I get $5 million, whatever. And this is UNLV. This is one of the worst programs in college football. What happens if the week of Alabama-Auburn, Jalen Milroe or whatever player, or someone on Auburn, if both teams are undefeated, huge leverage situation, says, you know what, I'm going to sit this game out unless I get $2 million to play. What happens then? It is an absolute can of worms, 100%. And like I said, it's totally unregulated.
That was an assistant coach that allegedly made the verbal commitment of $100,000. And then that goes into the question of, like, how much do the coaches have say over the collective who's doing the paying? And are they even allowed to have say? And how does that whole thing work? And then there's a ruling coming out at some point about, like, a salary cap for every single college that is hopefully going to right this entire ship. But this is like a perfect depiction of, I think from the very beginning, why I've been saying the guardrails are needed. Not only
100%.
for everybody thinks I say that because I'm like knocking the players getting money. I'm not.
I'm 100% with Pat on this, and said it from day one. The issue with this whole thing is that when it's so unregulated, when you do not know where the money's coming from, when you do not have anything structured, it becomes an absolute disaster. College quarterbacks should not be making $15 million a year. College quarterbacks should not be making $5 million a year just because one of their boosters is the richest man in the United States. Teams should absolutely be capped. Absolutely be capped. It is crazy that we're this many years in and we're still in this wild, wild west of NIL. It really is insane. 100%.
Knocking players getting money. What I'm knocking is shitty deals being made that aren't real, and they're being done with people that don't understand business or the business or have any background in this particular business at all. It's like, obviously the schools want guardrails because everybody's spending out of control. There's no market. We don't know what other people are paying. We don't know what the comps are. We don't know when we can pay. We don't know any of this stuff. Schools, and it's a collective pay, and it's not us. They own it. But for players, there's been a lot of these deals. I think some of them have been much larger and spotlighted more, where they're promised one thing and then they never get it. And that's because the deal was a fugazi. The deal was maybe just not upheld. And it's like,
think about the setup, okay? You have an 18-year-old a lot of the times, could be 17, could be not, whatever, talking to an absolute businessman power player. The businessman power player, more than likely, isn't the most, above board, I would say, isn't the most ethical if he's paying millions of dollars to an 18, 19-year-old to come play football at his college. And these deals are being done at parties. They're being done on recruiting trips. They're being done in really sketchy scenarios. No agents available, no lawyers available, certainly no contracts available. And you've got 18, 19-year-old kids listening to huge, powerful businessmen saying, yeah, we'll give you $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. All you got to do is recruit. You hear that? Yeah, I'll sign. Okay, yeah, I'll sign. Hey, where's that guy who told me on that boat that he was going to give me $100,000? Hey, where's that guy that told me he was going to give me $2 million to come play here? I can't get in touch with him. Oh, that's not happening anymore? Okay, bad news. I'm locked into this college. I'm going to get on out of here now. I mean, it's just obvious how this stuff happens. It's obvious how this is problematic. NIL, another part of the NIL rule is that contracts are to be done before the season. So it's all supposed to be laid out. It's all supposed to be known. It's all supposed to be signed and legally binding, if you will, before the season begins. Not only is this situation was not signed, there wasn't even a contract. None of this was actually happening the way it should be happening, which is why Sluka is in such a bad situation. Because what he's asking the team to do right now, or the university to do right now, they cannot do. So the only way that this gets resolved is if basically they skirt the system and a booster comes down and says, I'll cut you a check for $100,000 right now. Whatever, who cares? You know? But if that does take place, it would be like one instance of this whole thing crumbling in front of us.
It's like, well, who do you complain to? Well, really, court, I guess, but how does that even go into this entire thing? So there's been bad deals that have been taking place for families and players since the beginning of this NIL thing, since way before that, where guys either don't get paid out or like there was a Florida case, I think $7 million or something like that, that was allegedly a deal and it didn't work out a couple years ago. So like the ruling of this salary cap thing, where the schools and the teams are going to manage the money to whoever for at least the seeming contracts year to year. That's good news because then it's legit. Then you know who is actually paying it, how it's supposed to come. There'll probably be a pay schedule on how it all works out. But some of these deals feel like a little bit of bullshit. And
they are, obviously. And guys, like, we're just calling it something different. We're just calling it NIL. But this same thing has happened to professional athletes with their agents. Like, think about Mike Tyson. Think about how Mike Tyson got screwed by Don King, okay? That was like an actual contract, agent, legal situation that went sour, okay? Now take away the legal side of it. Now take away the contracts. Now take away the agents. Now just have kid or family member with assistant coach or booster. You know, like it's very obvious that this system is busted. And it's hard to figure out how you make it better. Because if you say, well, the answer is get rid of NIL and make it just contracts. Make it just like be fully transparent. Let the schools pay the kids. Okay. Well, how do you cap a USC or a Texas or an Alabama? How do you cap them similarly to a UNLV, to a Southern Miss? How do you make the playing field similar? You know, do you strip it down to a very low amount of money and you say like the most a player can make is $50,000 a year? I'm just making a random number up, because what that's going to do is it's going to swing it right back to where we were before, where it's just going to be shady deals with boosters. That's it. I mean, that's what's going to end up happening.
And I think if what is happening from the Sluka family side is happening, though I believe the school officials and other people said that's not true, we didn't do that. It's like you agreed to a bad deal that isn't a deal, that wasn't a deal, never a deal. Right. And you expected that, and now you're not getting it. And it's like, how many other situations are happening like this where the player doesn't just say, you know what, I'm done. Like 3 games in, 3-0, and he goes, I'm done. That's a big
nuts.
That's a massive decision. You're obviously.
Here's another thing it shows. There's another. I had this conversation before the season. These players, the whole pageantry, the tradition, the pride, all that stuff, you can go ahead and toss that out the window. Matt Sluka played 4 years at Holy Cross. He transfers to UNLV. You think he cares at all about the tradition and the pageantry and the pride and the school and the community and the fan? Who cares? You know, 20 years ago, most of the players on a team were from that region. A lot of them grew up fans of that team. There is pride there. There is a rivalry there. Players at Alabama cared about Auburn. Florida cared about Florida State. Miami cared about Florida State. There were obvious rivalries. There was an obvious pageantry to college football. A kid that grows up in Miami, Florida, who gets paid to go to Washington University, shows up there. He's going to play there for a year for a blank amount of money. He doesn't care about Washington versus Washington State. He doesn't care about the community or the fans or the pageantry and that stuff. It is a business. It is a business decision. They are there for a business reason. Matthew Sluka is at UNLV for a business reason. That's it. So a lot of the reason that people like college football is the purity and the, whatever. There is a real big divide between the fans, how much they care about their alma mater, the fraternities and sororities and, alumni night and whatever. There's a big divide between that, which is still beholden to the old school pageantry and all that of college football, and then what's actually on the field. When you see coaches go to the playoffs for one team and then immediately go somewhere else, and quarterbacks and running backs transferring a new team every year, there is no more rivalry. There is no more, there is none of that at all whatsoever. You think last year Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter cared about Colorado versus Colorado State? No. They had been in the state for 6 months. They went there because they made a ton of money. That's it. Why would they? They probably care now because they played there for a year and whatever. But the whole structure of college football is being just kind of peeled back.
You're going to piss off a lot of people. Your teammates, going to piss off, obviously, everybody that's worked alongside you to get to this point. Coaches that have nothing to do with this, aside from the assistant coach, I promise it, obviously not happy. So to have the shins to be able to be like, I'm going to take it on the shins very heavily here and be like, I'm going to get the money that I was told to get is a big stance. But how many other times has this happened? I don't know. But I'm happy for there to become regulations to kind of monitor this whole thing. Because we don't know what the story is. We don't know what the story is. But this situation was one that I thought everybody should have seen coming, potentially, from a player's perspective.
I think we have a pretty good idea what the situation is.
Because deals are bad on a pretty regular basis in the world of business.
Yeah, and you look at UNLV right now, like them being 3-0, like there's a chance that they're one of that group of 5 teams. Like they could make the playoff. Like they could win the Mountain West and make the playoff. But you also kind of understand. I mean, having only watched this kid once, he plays at Holy Cross for 4 years, but he's one of those guys like we always talk about. Like, hey, if you ball out, like you shouldn't be worried about making your NIL money. Like the NFL, is going to pay you, but like.
This kid's not going to the NFL. I mean, no hate, but Sluka's. I mean, he's not even that good. Like, let's be honest here. And I think that's where a lot of the problem right now is that he is taking a stance. And I believe he has wildly overvalued his actual value. I think UNLV, from how I hear it, is totally okay with going with the backup. And if they win this week, Sluka's screwed. If they win this week, his market value basically non-existent. And I mean, this does not seem like a good risk for him. He is betting everything that UNLV is going to fall apart without him. But if they look good, if they win, if they keep on rolling, God forbid, if they end up going to the playoffs and he's sitting there holding this $100,000 bag, what other team is going to pick him up? What other team is going to say, yeah, okay? Like, what other team is going to say, yeah, we'll go ahead and sign this guy? I don't know. This is risky business, and I don't think it's going to pay off.
This is a kid who's probably not going to play in the NFL. Like,
Hell no.
This may be his only opportunity. This is his last year in college football. Obviously, he's going to redshirt now, but like. He potentially was never going to get this opportunity to get $100,000 ever again. Who knows what his major is? Who knows what he's going to do after this? So, like you said, having the nutsack when you're 3-0 and like people are starting to talk about you to be like, you know what? No, I was promised $100,000. They're not going to pay me, so fuck them.
Now people are going to call him a bad teammate, obviously selfish and everything like that. Which easy argument to make whenever this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think both things can be true. Like. It 100% is a selfish decision. It 100% is a I before the team kind of situation, no doubt about it. Now you could also argue like, hey, you got to do what you got to do, but you absolutely can't look at the situation and say like, oh yeah, no, so Luka's doing, he's definitely doing the right thing.
Situation happens, but on the flip side, it's like how selfish is it of the assistant coach, because he's probably weighing his options. His side said, now we don't know if this was even right.
Yeah,
it's gonna be hard to track any of this.
Yeah,
from what the way I understand it, what I believe is the true story is the assistant coach said something to the effect of $100,000, no problem. That'll be no problem at all. Come to UNLV, that'll be no problem. And that was it. Like that's what Sluka was sold on. That getting $100,000 would be quote unquote no problem. Spoiler alert, ended up being a problem because the school was not privy to that. There was no contract. There was nothing written out. So when the school hears this, it's like, who is supposed to pay you $100,000? What do you mean? So it's just one of the, like, you hate to say it because it sounds like I'm blaming the player, but this whole thing is propped up by like a pretty obvious bad deal, a pretty obvious, like, not binding. Again, the NIL has not been around for 6 months. NIL has been around for years. Like, hey guys, if anyone here was watching the channel and is planning on playing collegiate sports, get it in writing. Hey guys, if anyone here is actually just not even talking about playing sports, just working, get it in writing. Don't go work somewhere. If you're walking around and some guy says, hey, I got a construction job, I want you to come do, whatever, $5,000 a day, it should be no problem. Don't just go show up at the construction site. Get you a contract. Get something in writing. Like, it's just a bad deal all around. Assistant coach, is he a scumbag for promises stuff that he can't deliver on? Yeah, sure. But
verbal.
It's a he said, she said, he said, coach said situation in the entirety of it. But he said one of the reasons why he went there is because there was conversations happen everywhere. Yeah. So it's like, how often does this happen? And how often are players just not saying anything because they're like embarrassed to be the ones who maybe were a part of a deal that was a fugazi? Because that's like an embarrassing situation too, obviously, in it all. It's wild time.
Very well. And like you said, I don't know how they figured it out, but they need to figure it out and quick. And when you have, you talked about bad deals always been out there. That's even in writing. So verbal, you got to get whatever you got in writing. Yeah. And obviously, it's a learning situation for him.
100%.
To Ty's point, you got to have some big nuts, pause, to say, because you're going to be painted as a bad guy. You're the guy that everybody sees.
You are the bad guy. Like, you're not being painted as a bad guy. You are the bad guy in this situation. You are screwing your teammates over for your own individual gain. And this hombre is correct. Like, there are bad deals that do get put in contracts. There are bad deals that do get sent to lawyers and agents and whatever else. Just like I said with Mike Tyson, like, there's plenty of those. Plenty of bad deals that go around that go through the actual channels. So a verbal contract, whew.
You're the guy that everybody knows, so you got to be able to take that on the chin.
Yeah, it definitely does. Big story, though, because this is the NIL thing coming to a tipping point, and is this a situation that is maybe putting it there, and when's the judgment come? I don't know. Tone, that's a big storyline. That's a big college ball convo right now, even though UNLV, obviously not one of the big dogs. Mm-hmm. Maybe future.
Yeah, maybe.
Could be.
Can't be making potential fake.
I think what has to happen is you take the boosters out of it. I think that's the first step. Is it cannot be millionaire booster paying player directly. Right? It cannot be that. It cannot be like Phil Knight, like with Nike in Oregon. Like, it can't be Phil Knight promising the best quarterback in the country $10 million a year. It can't be that, because then that tips the scales of all of a sudden college is basically run by boosters. If Phil Knight, just because he wants to pay $10 million a year, there's no one at Louisiana Tech that can do that. So all of a sudden, like, the fair play is completely ruined. That's the first thing I would say you got to do. Is it probably has to come from the conference, I would think, whether it's a TV deal or whether it's some kind of pooled, some kind of money that then you can draw a salary cap from. And then each team in that conference is under the same salary cap and whatever. Like I don't know if that's the answer, but the payments have to come from a corporation or a school, and it has to be scheduled out. The payments have to be above board. The payments have to be for a thing. It can't be a salary to play. It has to be, we're paying you because of your jerseys or your, a commercial or a TV deal or this or that, whatever. And it has to be that is how it has to be. It cannot be, oh, well, blank millionaire wants his team to win, so he's offering $4 million on the side. It cannot be that, because that's how these deals happen. That's how all this stuff, it has to. But then, like, that's the problem is the problem. What really kind of started this is when the NCAA sold its soul to the TV companies. The second that ESPN owns SEC, the second that Fox owns the Big 12 or the Big 10 or whatever it is now, and the NCAA lost any governance over their own teams, their own conferences, and Fox was making the decisions for Big East or Big 12 teams, when ESPN execs are the ones making the decision for universities and not the actual universities, when the conference no longer is adhering to making sure that the student athlete and that the university and all of that is okay, when it becomes like, okay, how can I position Alabama to make the best TV product? How do I position this conference to give me the best product on the screen? And all of a sudden now these student athletes are actors, and they're the same. They're on-screen personalities. They're not athletes. They're not students. They're not any of that stuff. That's when this all ballooned out of control. And you can obviously see that, like, you can see the TV networks already shaping college sports to this minor league, where they're shaping the playoffs and they're shaping these, like, this new, like, Power 5 minor league conference thing. You can already see the conference realignments, and you can see how it's happening. And they're eventually going to squeeze out everyone else to where it's just this, like, 40-team super league, and these TV networks are going to position this 40-team super league to have a big playoff, and they're going to play each other in these huge matchups every week. And the collegiate side of it, the pageantry, the rivalry, all that stuff is going to be gone. They don't give a damn about that. That's gone. Oh, the SEC is regional? LOL. Now we've got Utah. Congrats. Utah's in the SEC. I'm just making stuff up. But, the Big East. We all think about, the Big East basketball tournament. It's all right there, and it's in Madison Square Garden. Oh, yeah? Well now, whatever. Washington State's in the Big East. So good luck with that. So I think we're on an obvious path. I think we're on an obvious path to college sports, for the most part, just becoming the minor leagues.
Like this.
Give you $1 million.
Yeah. What do you think?
Give you 10 bucks.
What do you think?
Huh? What are they paying? $9 million? Sweet. How about 18? Oh, we got a fucking guy. It's Las Vegas.
Right.
We got money.
You good?
We're good, right?
Let's
sign right
do
here.
this shit.
Sign right here. This is a good sign. Hey, you're getting a good car here. You're getting a good car here.
I think Mr. Davis loves that program too, so it could be a situation.
Yeah, exactly. That's another sell. Guy who owns an NFL team. You ever see and WNBA team? You don't think he has enough money to pay you? He wants you. Come on.
Certainly does.
Sorry, you don't need a tech.
Well, I mean, like Dave Portnoy with Barstool, when the story came out, he came out and said that he'll pay $3 million a year for Michigan to have a 5-star quarterback. So right now, if you are a 5-star quarterback, let's say you're the number 1 quarterback in the country, and you hear that, you don't think you're trying to get in contact with Dave? You don't think you're trying to get in contact with him and say, hey, I heard you're all about paying $3 million. What you think about that? That's an obvious situation of a booster or an alum who's willing to pay a player directly with absolutely no governance from the NCAA, with absolutely no connection as far as, like, the school making the decision, or the school monitoring anything, or the school having any say-so whatsoever of that deal. And it's just up to the alum and the player. And I think Dave Portnoy would pay the player for that. I mean, it's kind of his brand. It'd be good content for him, all that stuff. But there are a lot of other boosters who are behind the scenes in the shadows for other colleges that would say the same thing and then go running whenever, if the player didn't work out, the team didn't work out or whatever. So it's just a real sticky situation.
Test drive this thing? Not at all. Don't worry about it. It's great. You kind of hear a little sound when it turns on. That's actually because the engine's too strong. Sign this fucking thing. Yeah, that's literally what it could be. And these college coaches are recruiters. They are car salesmen.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is a part of it. So if it is just an assistant coach just being like, $100,000? Yeah, no problem. No problem. We got you 100.
Get that one night at the casino.
Come on, bub. Come on. Yeah, you want to be a rebel. Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think?
Deal. All right. Now I got to go. How much I got to promise this kid?
Yeah. 200? 300?
What do you need? 77 grand? No problem. We just got 100 grand. I know what That's wild. That's a wild potential reality happening.
No doubt.
Like that is, that's a real deal.
Wild out there. It's wild. But, the toothpaste is out of the tube. So you can't put it back. So how are they going to fix it? I have absolutely zero faith in the NCAA. I don't think they're even... I would put 0% that the NCAA figures this out. So tough time right now to be a student athlete for sure. In NIL, I really think the faster they just get to the full transparency of like it is what it is, and what it is that minor league. Like the faster they just get there and quit trying to trick everybody, I think the better for everyone. There you go. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.